Hey, welcome back. It's Money Monday on Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. We're coming to you from the Question Tequila Studios. As I mentioned last week, the Dow Jones closed for the first time on a Friday, which was good news. We're holding that number today as the market's up about 30 points at 28, as we speak, 029. And that's good news for the markets. Always good news for you. One of my favorite Marine vet and political strategist, Bill Cortese, joins us in studio. Billy, thanks for coming in again.
Always happy to be here.
I see you've been traveling a lot lately. You were upstate, you were in Connecticut, you were there. What's happened out there on the in Middle America?
It's interesting. I mean, obviously impeachment's front and center, and I think the spectacle that we've seen so far has lived up to all the hype. It is an absolute circus, but I think some of the bright spots coming out of this, I mean, Elise Stefanik, who is an up-and-comer, a rising star, I mean, is meteoric right now. And I think for her defense and what she did during the impeachment, the questioning,
put herself on the map.
She really has put herself on the map, and her opponents raised a lot of money off of her, and I think she's raising a lot of money off of her performance as well, and what she did, and really holding some of these Democrats accountable for what they've been doing in these impeachment proceedings.
So, Billy, you know I'm from Staten Island, New York, as well. Frank is, and I know you know the political landscape in Staten Island, New York 11 well. I'm sure you know this too, as one of my Italian brethren, that it's the most Italian-American congressional district probably in the country. And our friends over at Saturday Night Live, Colin Jost, another fellow Staten Islander, they saw fit in covering, all their weekend update to mock some Italians. Take a look at what Colin Jost had to say. Frankie.
Wow. Italy will become the first country in the world to make it mandatory for schools to teach children about climate change. Because, as Italian scientists put it, the Earth is about to become a spicy meatball.
I mean, is that the best they could do about Italian scientists? The spicy meatball?
I expect a little more even from them, and that's not expecting much.
Yeah, I mean, you got
it's a low bar.
Staten Island's kind of well represented. You got Colin Jost, he's a Staten Island, belongs to my country club, Richmond County Country Club. You got Pete Davidson, he's a Staten Islander through and through. You'd think they'd be a little more sensitive to Italians. I mean, my feelings would kind of hurt.
I don't know. Listen, from the view of these meatballs, that's fine. They can make fun all they want, but as long as these are here, I'm all right.
Those are some fried meatballs from Freddy's Gourmet, homemade for us right here at Liquid Lunch. Josh Kravitz, one of my favorite Democrats, a Democratic strategist, also running for New York City Council here in New York, joins us also for this Mix It Up. So, guys, I want you to take a look at this clip of Sean Patrick Maloney on impeachment, and let me know what you think. Well, maybe we don't have that clip right now, but it seems like I've been saying for the last week or so, it's like kabuki theater, because everyone knows this is going to get killed in the Senate, right? Some of this Saturday Night Live stuff is about as real as, it's made for TV. Josh, where does the insanity end? They're going back to the Mueller probe now.
I don't know why you characterize it as insanity. I think it's really serious, and I think it's really important that the American people see what our president's conduct is. I mean, the Roger Stone trial pretty much laid bare for everyone that he lied to Mueller in his written answers, and that there was coordination between Roger Stone and WikiLeaks, and Roger Stone was communicating with Trump. Meanwhile, WikiLeaks was coordinating with the Russians, and the American intelligence community has clearly stated that the Russians were the ones responsible in meddling with our election. So it's A to B to C to D, but it's very clear there were go-betweens.
So A to B to B to C to C to D is clear.
You know what?
It sounds like what you just said, Josh. It sounds like the old game Clue. You know what I mean? It was Colonel Mustard in the library with the candles. It's like, there's this series of compound events,
Just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's not important.
Billy,
and
is it insanity
it is important for
that
the
they won't
American
let this
people
guy
to know.
govern?
Well, the problem is here is I think Democrats are looking at, insiders are looking at the same thing everyone else is looking at, a weak field where no one's really pulling ahead at this point. and 2020 where they're looking less and less likely that they can win this election. And so
why is the field weak, by the way?
I think the numbers, I mean, clearly
no one has a consensus. Not everyone. None of them has any consensus.
Which numbers?
No one's broken out. Joe Biden was
I'd just be interested to
supposed
know which number you're talking about when you say that it's a weak field, because I'm a Democrat. 80% of Democrats are happy with the field. We may talk about Pete Buttigieg. He looks like he's doing great.
Well, ask Mike Bloomberg and ask Deval Patrick why they're getting in at this point, because those guys,
because they see one candidate, Biden, is not doing well.
A weak
Biden's not doing well, but 40% of the electorate is pretty honed in on Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. Buttigieg is rising, and 80% of the Democratic electorate is happy. So I don't know what statistic you're pointing to say that we're not.
You're having fun with numbers there.
No, I'm asking for numbers. I'm not having fun with numbers. I'm saying, give me data.
You said 40% of the Democratic electorate is happy with Biden and Warren.
Yes.
With Sanders and Warren.
Yeah.
So that sounds like only 20% each. So it doesn't sound like consensus. It sounds like a weak field when they can't get consensus behind one or two candidates.
There were 17 Republican candidates in 2016. Ted Cruz won in Iowa with probably 20% of the vote, maybe less. I mean, that's natural. I don't know where the weak field is, and you're not bringing any data to suggest otherwise. If you do, I'm happy to entertain it.
Well, no one in Iowa, no one's above 20%. No one. Not
Pete
one
Buttigieg
Democrat.
is at 25%. They just showed that this morning.
Oh, today he just popped up in some Des Moines Register poll.
But
no one's been above
that statistic
25.
has nothing to do with the statistic that 80% of Democrats are happy with the field.
I don't think they're happy, but we'll see. You would know better than us. I want to take a look at all 2 weeks ago we heard was Latin words, quid pro quo, quid pro quo. That became a little too complicated for some on the left to pronounce all the time. So here's what Sean Patrick Maloney had to say about that.
What we're talking about here is that the President of the United States used taxpayer-funded military assistance to pressure a foreign leader to help him in his re-election campaign. That is solicitation of a bribe, and that is an impeachable offense listed in the Constitution. And sadly, my friend Chris Stewart is going to get his wish this week when we get testimony from Ambassador Sondland, who at the president's instruction told the Ukrainians either go to a microphone and announce an investigation of the Bidens, or there will not be military assistance. That is solicitation of a bribe.
That's not what happened, but that's a convenient way for them to frame it. With a government that's been known to be one of the top most corrupt countries in the world, Donald Trump wanted some assurances that President Zelensky was going to get rid of corruption and open some investigations into Burisma and the 2016 spying. Are they flipping the script now because quid pro quo is not working, Billy?
Well, I think they're certainly going in the field and testing these, right? I mean, the messaging obviously hasn't been working with the quid pro quo, and so they've spent some time. The DCCC had told a lot of their candidates that are in these swing districts, these 31 districts out there, to go in and to kind of test out the impeachment, test out this messaging, and clearly bribery pops a little more than a quid pro quo, and so clearly that just shows even more that this is political. This is not about really getting to the truth. We were waiting for a smoking gun with Mueller. We didn't get it. Here's round two, and so this is a political witch
What do you
hunt.
think, Josh?
Well, I'd like to go back to your previous point, which is that the president was interested in corruption in Ukraine. I will address your point as well, but that the president was interested in corruption in Ukraine, and that's why the aid was withheld. No one has testified to that. No, there's no reason to think that that's what was going on. Every data point that we have suggests that Giuliani was going into Ukraine for the president's benefit. And by the way, if you're interested in corruption in Ukraine, then why aren't you talking about the rule of law? Why aren't you talking about judges? Why aren't you talking about good prosecutors? Oh no, I want you to investigate one company,
That's
one
not
company
what was
in
said,
Ukraine.
Josh. That's not what was said.
Well,
That's the Democratic narrative.
He's interested in one company.
No. He's asking for corruption investigations.
He mentions Hunter Biden by name in the July 25th transcript. So
he
that's
did.
what he said. So why is he interested in one company? If he was interested in corruption, he would be talking about judges. He would be talking about the rule of law. He's not interested in corruption. He's interested in one company. As to
What
your
do you
point,
think, Billy?
But as to your point,
and there's more.
well, as to your point, what I'd like to say is that in the Constitution, that there are three grounds for impeachment. There's treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors. High crimes and misdemeanors is sort of a catch-all term that doesn't really have any legal significance, and you have to go into the Federalist Papers and try and understand what that means. Bribery, on the other hand, is something that has a clear definition. So instead of saying quid pro quo, why are we putting, as Democrats, from a messaging perspective, why are we putting our eggs in the basket of an undefined term when we can just say bribery? Because it is bribery. It's the solicitation of a bribe. If you don't do this for me, we're going to withhold the aid. Necessary lethal aid. Well, 1,400 Ukrainians have died in their country, defending their country from the Russians. Oh, by the way, President Trump colluded with the Russians.
Well, I think President Trump was actually the one who authorized lethal aid to the Ukrainians.
Right.
Barack Obama denied that to the Ukrainians for 8 years.
For 3 years. Yeah.
So I think, we want to talk about the facts here.
He authorized the lethal aid 2 days after the whistleblower complaint came to the attention of the White House. Before then, for 6 weeks, Ukrainian soldiers were dying on their own land defending their country from the Russians. 6 weeks. We have no clue how many young men died that shouldn't have because of a political investigation. And this is the United States of America. And if our national security isn't above politics, then who are we?
Well, we don't want to talk about when Barack Obama is sitting there with the Russian president talking about waiting to win, get through an election so he has more leeway. Flexibility.
You understand that conversation happened in 2012. The Ukrainians were invaded by Russia in 2014
during the Obama presidency. Correct.
No, right,
that allowed that to happen.
Okay, you're talking about a conversation that preceded the invasion by 2 years.
The point was, Barack Obama was telling the Russians, hey, go easy on me right now till I get through my election.
Go easy on what?
And then I can be more flexible. Like, don't do anything provocative. Tell Vladimir I can be more flexible after I get elected. So lay off me.
It's your contention that Obama said to Medvedev, who was the president at the time, hey, lay off invading Ukraine until I'm elected.
No, you lay off, or, go easy on us. Let me get through my election.
In what regard?
He didn't want any attacks. He didn't want anything provocative happening from Russia to the U.S. so that they didn't force him to do something.
What's an example of something provocative?
I don't have an example for you right now, but that's what the conversation was. All right, you know what? Josh is fired up today. That's why we do to mix it up, because all thoughts are heard. We bring in a Democrat and a Republican. We're the only show on television who does that every single day. And we're going to do some more of it when we come back and mix it up with Bill Cortese and Josh Kravitz right after this.